Hello and welcome back to the Welsh Premiership podcast. On to episode 18 now. If you haven't watched any of our videos before, go and check them out. Last time we were joined by Swansea Freeze captain Dav Lockyer, and today we're joined by Aberavon head coach Jason Hyatt. Jason, how are you? And how have you been dealing with things with no Prem rugby on?
Yeah, it's been strange, isn't it? You know, it's it all came suddenly, really. You know, one minute we were preparing to play Aberavon on the back of a great win against Cardiff, you know, and things were really getting to the business end of the season, as they say. And then, you know, it sort of came to a halt really quickly. So, yeah, it's been, as I said, the way it came across was 1 minute we were playing rugby and everything was normal, life was normal, and we were enjoying life and pretty successful. And it all came to a stop really quickly.
And what have you been getting up to with the lockdowns and stuff? And how have you been filling your time with no rugby?
Myself personally, I took the opportunity to lose a couple of pounds and try and get a little bit fitter. So Lyndon Lewis, our attack coach, does a lot of walking. So, you know, we when we were able to, and restrictions relaxed a little bit, we could do some walking together. Other times I've been walking on my own and with family. So it turned the competitive nature in me has turned it into a bit of a competition, and I'm trying to get as far as I can now. So hopefully we'll use that to my advantage. And there's a Maggie's charity that, well, all charities are struggling at the moment. So I'm hoping to do something as soon as the restrictions ease a little bit, because there's a number of people who want to join in, but I'd like to do the Gower Ultra, which is the 50-mile walk around the Gower. So hopefully I can get there, probably on my knees by the end of it, but it's just a good opportunity to challenge myself to do something outside of my comfort zone and raise some funds for a brilliant charity like Maggie's.
And we've seen the stuff on social media that Aberavon have been doing with the mini teams, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you've been doing that? And
basically, it was an idea that Lloyd Evans came up with. We were going to Lloyd was very much leading this, and Lloyd is obviously one of our key players, one of our senior players, and made a great impact since joining. And Lloyd, we discussed the idea of mini teams, and you know it's quite exciting because it can lead in all different directions. You know, it's not just rugby based. You know, it's mainly a bit of fun, total engagement, and then you can turn it to you know, rugby philosophy as the season's going on, set challenges. You know, it really was a really exciting concept. So you know, we were sort of very much, the health and welfare of the players obviously came first. So, you know, we haven't done any training. We've taken on a new strength and conditioning coach in Josh Davis. We're all excited about that. Josh has got a great background, and we're quite excited to see Josh get in with the Wizards and see what Josh can do. The players have obviously been working, doing their own strength and conditioning, and we encourage the players to sort of maybe go outside of what they normally do, because you know we didn't know when the season was going to start, so it was very difficult to put a structured strength and conditioning plan in place when you haven't got a start date, as you do every other pre-season. So you know, we've obviously kept in touch with the players, and they've had local regular phone calls. Andrew Vaughan John, our chairman, has been tremendous throughout, and obviously phoning the players, just making sure that they and their families are well, and if they need any additional support. One of our players who I hold in very high regard, I've worked with Lee for a number of seasons. You know, Lee discussed, it was actually Andrew had put some questions together for the players, you know, as you say, to just engage on social media with the supporters and everyone. And one of the questions was, how's COVID affected you the most? And Lee spoke to me, he phoned me and said, look, you know, he'd been suffering with a little bit of mental health and depression, and you know, he talked me through it. And you know, I'd been talking to Lee on a regular basis, like all the other players, but it sort of, you know, it taught me that, you know, somebody saying, yeah, I'm fine, it doesn't really mean that they're fine. So luckily, Lee's got a fantastic support structure in the family and friends around him, and his wife encouraged Lee to go and speak to the doctor, which he did. And, he got the help that he needed, and he's in a really good place now. But Lee, being the type of character he is, he really wanted to speak to the squad. We've got a lot of youngsters in the squad, some young guys that have just come out of pro rugby and, feel pressure in all different ways from people that, got full-time jobs and a family to support. So we had a Zoom meeting, and Lee spoke to the players and shared his experience, and in all honesty, it was quite emotional. It was very, very well accepted by the players, and I think it helped a lot of players out. So on the back of that, with Lee's experience, Lloyd was instrumental in with the leadership group in unveiling the mini teams. That was actually been split into 5 separate teams, and it's a bit of fun. They've had some fun with creating the videos that have gone out, and very professional. It's really good. So on a serious note, it helps the players become more engaged. And now that we've got sort of, we know we're going to be playing next season, or I hope we're not jinxing ourselves, but I'm pretty sure we'll be playing next season, and it engages the players, and it's very much it's going to be very effective on, as I say, leading us down different paths. But first and foremost, it gets the players fully engaged and chatting and talking, and getting the quieter players, if you like. I'm not necessarily mean the younger players, but the players who don't hear from all the time, get them to engage and talk.
And looking back to last season, then Aberavon finished 3rd in the league. How did you feel it went?
Well, we won 6. We started. We always set ourselves. I don't like to use the word goals. We don't actually sit down and set goals, but we do discuss what we want out of the season, and it's always a good start. And we did have a good start. We had some good wins. We got a little bit of momentum going, and then sort of I don't know why it is. We had a little bit of a sticky patch with 2 or 3 losses, and then we really found our momentum, and it was it was a bit disappointing towards the end, as I said, the way it came to an end, because we'd won 6 of our last 7 games. We'd beaten Cardiff at home in a really good game, and in fairness, so 2 games against Cardiff were really good standard Premiership games of rugby. They're real top quality, enjoyable to watch and play in. Cardiff beat us by a point up in Cardiff to a penalty going into the last 10 minutes. And then we beat Cardiff at home. So we picked a strong side to play against Llandovery on the Friday. And then obviously we went into lockdown. And, it is disappointing. But on a plus note, as I said earlier, the health and safety comes before everything else. So, we had no alternative but to call the Llandovery game off. But yeah, we played some good rugby, and I got no doubt we would have been in the mix for the league and the cup. We were in the semi-final against Merthyr. We'd done the double on Merthyr last season, or that season before. So yeah, it was just starting to sort of really get exciting, and it came to a premature end.
Yeah, and we're still not sure when next season will actually start. But when it does start, what are the club's aims and ambitions for next season?
Pretty much, we're really happy with the culture we're creating at the club. The environment is probably the most important. As head coach, that's something that I pay real close attention to. We're always trying to develop the environment, and I've always had the philosophy, probably a mixture of my own research and my experiences as a player. The environment is the most important. It underpins everything. If you're going to have longevity and you're going to create a lasting legacy as players and coaches, then the environment has got to be right. And I suppose it's just to keep going forward, keep pushing the boundaries. We play some really nice rugby. I think we're known as a side that isn't afraid to take risks. We've got to have very high ball in play time, and probably just enjoy ourselves. It's you get wrapped up in it sometimes, and the pressure of coaching, playing, and it literally goes in a flash. And one thing this pandemic has taught us is, when times are good, really, really appreciate them and enjoy them, because things can change really quickly.
And on a personal level then, you played for a few Premiership clubs. You also represented Wales at under-21s level as well. What are some of your favourite playing memories?
I loved youth. I played all my junior rugby for Aleague Rugby Club, and I live in Aleague. I've pretty much lived in Aleague since I was 5 and 6. Coached Aleague, so I've grew up very much in the rugby culture of Aleague, which luckily is a fantastic junior section. They do some great work. Liam Williams, coming out of Aleague recently, that Nicky Thomas, Nicky Smith, it's Scott Orton, that's just recently. It's a hotbed of rugby, and I was fortunate to be well looked after in Aleague. And Aleague got me on the coaching ladder, which I'll always be thankful of. They were my first team I coached. So I loved playing for Aleague. Obviously, West Wales was a little bit different in those days. I came out thinking I was a world beater at 18 years of age. I'd played for Wales Youth and whatever, and quickly realised, you're not all that hot when you go into West Wales against Hendy and Tumble and all sort of sides, and you get used as a punch bag probably for 12 months. So, but yeah, it was great. It was, I was very fortunate. I played with Aleague. I had a couple of games with Aberavon as an 18-year-old. I had a blonde mullet in those days, and Di Beaton always reminds me of that. I turned up with a massive amount of blonde hair. I played a couple of games for Aberavon, and I had some advice off an old friend in Aleague, Malcolm Arnold. I was always chasing the sort of, I was desperate to play high-level rugby, and I had some advice to say, look, just play and enjoy yourself. Stop chasing something all the time. And I did. I went back to Aleague. I played. I'd had a couple of games for Swansea as well. I just really enjoyed my rugby. And then Llanelli came in for me. And it was actually Phil Davis who offered me a contract. I signed for Llanelli, and I had 4 great years down there. I think played around about 80 odd games there, played in Europe. Some of my highlights, I remember playing against Stade Francais in Aberavon, in Llanelli, and we won. We'd lost the week before by 70 points, and then the following week we beat Stade Francais, and I was lucky enough to pick up man of the match as well. So that was really pleasing. But some great times, and some great stories. Europe was very different in those days. Now it's very serious. Flights are chartered. Back in those days, we used to enjoy going after the game. A lot of the French teams, Brive and whatnot, didn't have clubs. They put up a marquee in the ground, and we get pretty worse for wear, and then normally get roped in with Chris Wyatt and players like that, and end up in a lot of trouble. Yeah, I ended up owing Llanelli money some months, I think.
And your coaching career, and you spent some time with Tom Mower, and you took them to the Premiership and finishing 8th. What was your time like there?
Yeah, it was great. I'd coached Aleague for 2 years, and I'd fully intended, actually built a house in Aleague, and I'd fully intended to focus on building. And then I was missing rugby, and an opportunity came up to coach Tom Mower, and met some real good people up there. Cledwyn Edwards, Dell. There was good guys up there that were desperate to sort of get a bit of success, and we had some good players up there. It was very much like the Dirty Dozen. We seemed to pull all the players in who'd sort of been chewed up or had a pretty rough experience, and had a point to prove. So yeah, I was fortunate. I learned a lot. I was fortunate to coach with Austin Howells at that time, and Rob Appleyard. There was some really good coaches up there, and I learned a lot in my period there, and really enjoyed it as well.
And then in 2011, you joined Swansea as head coach. What was your time like at Swansea? Oh,
very good. If I'm honest, it was a very difficult club environment to coach in, and I learned a lot. I'll try and be as honest as I can. I sort of went to the Ospreys, who were my employer and head coach at Swansea, and it was almost perhaps thinking it was a light bulb moment. You'd meet coaches with a lot of experience, and they would just sort of, that's how you do it. Taught me a few lessons about going into certain situations and running an environment. It was just a very difficult very difficult environment to manage and to coach in. You know, there were a lot of regional players that were dropping down, and you know, it wasn't a settled squad. There's some good people there. You know, really enjoyed working with Richard Moriarty. I got a lot of respect for Dick. You know, I played with him, went on tour with him, roomed with him in Florida. You know, it was we had some great times, but yeah, it was very difficult. And you know, I think the coaches that were there before me and the ones that went in after me, you know, and Swansea ended up, you know, being demoted a couple of years later. So it was very difficult. And but on the plus side, you know, you always try and turn a negative into a positive. And I learned a tremendous amount about myself, and more importantly, I learned some really valuable lessons down there, which I'll be thankful for.
And you've ended up back at another club you represented, Aberavon. How did that come about, and how are you enjoying your time there?
I left Llanelli and I met Lynn Jones. Lynn offered me to go to Neath, and Mevin was hooker in Neath at the time, and you know, it was myself and Robbie McBride in Llanelli, so I pretty much played second fiddle most of my time there, and I wanted to go to a club where I could just play every Saturday. I was 30, coming up to 30 years of age. My son Lewis was just about to be born, so I just wanted to play. And I met with Lynn, and although the offer was tempting to go to Neath, it was, you know, very much again, there was a Welsh hooker there, and I decided to take a contract up with Aberavon, and then it was the old Championship, I think it was called. And it was the best time I've ever had in rugby. You know, just really loved the supporters at the club. It was a real family atmosphere. It was roughly the same time Andrew Vaughan John, Meyer and the family got involved with the club, and you know, it quickly became then a very family orientated club. My wife, my son Lewis, my daughter then was born, so you know, they used to love coming to the club, and it was just real nice. And we were very successful. You know, we won a number of championships. Remember, we played Cardiff in the quarter-final of the cup in Aberavon, and we nearly done that. You know, I think Joubert was coaching at the time, and it was it was really good. You know, it was very successful. We had a great team. You know, how that team would have fared now in the Premiership, I don't think it would have. A different time now, different ball game. But some great players there, and really enjoyed myself with Aberavon. It was probably my favourite time as a player in rugby.
And is that what's brought you as a coach now, and still enjoying the same sort of atmosphere and environment?
Yeah, I was coaching Aleague at the time. I'd gone back actually to coach Aleague. I took a year out after I finished with Swansea. Surfed for a year, bought a surfboard, and I'm lucky I don't live far from the Gower, so went and surfed for a full year. Loved doing that with the family. And then I took another coaching opportunity up with Aleague, and as I said, really enjoyed myself there. And I think we had a great start, and I had a call off Steve Jones to go up and meet with Andrew in November. I think that was 2014, and then I was offered the head coach's role with Aberavon, and I just jumped at the chance. You know, I knew there was good people around me. Aberavon were struggling at that time. You know, I think they were bottom of the Premiership, so you know, we had a job to do. But I knew, you know, there was never a doubt. You know, once Andrew offered me the role of head coach, it was I think I gave him an instant decision.
And a lot of things get said about the standard of Prem rugby. As a coach who's been in the league for a while, what do you make of the standard?
Personally, I think the standard's excellent, and I get quite annoyed sometimes with some of the people who make comments about the Premiership don't really understand the work that goes on behind the scenes. You know, we've got a fantastic coaching group in Aberavon. You know, we're very fortunate. Lyndon Lewis is attack coach, Chris Davis defence, and Mark Breeze, the forwards coach. Jamie Davis is skills based coach. So you know, a lot of effort, a lot of work goes in, and you know, I see that in the top teams within the Premiership. You know, you've really got to. We talked about evolving the environment. You've got to evolve almost on a weekly basis, you know, because the best teams, the best coaches will pick your game apart and quickly find ways to combat a certain play or something you're relying on. So you've got to grow it. But I think the standard's excellent, and we've been very lucky in Aberavon. We've had Justin Tipperick there and Ashley Beck, loads of players that have come through and gone on, and I think personally, I think the standard's excellent. I think it's getting better. We aim for, as I said earlier, ball in play time round about the 38, 39 minute mark. We've gone over 40 minutes on a couple of occasions. And when you understand ball in play doesn't include lineouts and scrums, it's literally, when you look back, and we talked a bit earlier about the success we had, the way the conditioning of the players now, is exceptional, and I really take my hat off to them. They work very, very hard to play the game that we want to play.
And there always seems to be a debate regarding whether players are better playing in the Premiership or like a regional A competition. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think they're better off playing in the Premiership?
I think the Premiership for me, what it does, when we get players come to Aberavon, we've got 4 players with us from the Ospreys. 3 were with us last year. So we've got Jordan Walters, Rhys Henry, 2 props who come Avon just up the road. Rhys Thomas in the back row, Ty Bach, and Joe Hawkins, who didn't play. He was with us last year, and the game we picked had to be called off. I think it was against Swansea. So these guys come into us, and I think what the Premiership does, it's not just turn up and you're guaranteed a game. The first thing these young players have got to do is they've got to buy into the environment. They've got to earn their selection. Understand how the club works, what the ethos of the club is, how the club is what direction the club's going in, and add to it on and off the field. It's not just about rocking up. So first off, they learn valuable life lessons, to manage themselves in a different environment. They're not in the regional bubble. They can come out of that. We train on a Tuesday and a Thursday evening. Then as players, young players, they start to play, and they're playing then against people of different abilities. They're playing against ex-pros that maybe have played, all their careers as a professional rugby player, then gone into the Premiership. They're playing against youngsters who want their position within a region. They're playing against very good Premiership players that have maybe played, 200-300 games for their clubs, and they learn a tremendous amount. I look back on my career, I learned some valuable lessons playing for Aleague seconds. Probably one of the best playing for Aleague seconds. I think it was against Penlan. So, for me, it's about getting that balance right, and I think the Premiership is an environment that allows those youngsters to thrive in it. You look at we're talking about the Premiership being based there for that sort of those players. It's also very competitive. So you've got demotion from the Premiership. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. So the players learn how to handle pressure, whether they're fighting down the bottom to stay in the Premiership, or they're fighting at the top end to win titles and trophies. And that comes with a different sort of pressure. And I think you've got to have competition for that. And, being honest, we want to win every game. As players and coaches, we want to win every single game we play in. That's not always possible. We know that. But it certainly gives those players an understanding how important winning is. We can dress it up all we want, but ultimately, it's about winning at the end of the day. And we don't sort of focus on winning, but that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? The ultimate prize is to win trophies. Everything that sits under that is underpinned by the environment, and we talked about that earlier. But I also think, if I can use Jack Morgan as an example, the Jack is an exceptional talent, and I've got no doubt will go on and play for Wales and probably captain Wales. Jack was released by the Scarlets. Jack came to Aberavon, and he played for us. I think he played over 1,000 minutes in that season, which earned him selection into the Welsh under-20s. He had a great tournament. And then he was re-signed by the Scarlets, and, a little bit unfortunate at the moment. He's picked up a knee injury, but he was on fire, once he got game time. So, what the Premiership did was, Jack was released by the Scarlets. He played back in the Premiership with Aberavon, enhanced his reputation, played some good rugby, earned himself a full-time contract with the Scarlets. You also got other players that are maybe late developers. So, if you look at Wyn Jones, man of the match against Ireland on Saturday, Wyn played over 90 games for Llandovery, started off playing for the youth, seconds. I believe he played for some of the Carmarthen teams as well. But ultimately, he was signed from the Premiership by the Scarlets from Llandovery. So, hats off to Llandovery. They did a terrific job there in developing him. And now, in all honesty, he's probably favourite for the Lions tour. So, I think the Premiership is vital in many aspects for the development and of Welsh rugby.
And what do you think the main differences are between the A-League and the Premiership then? Would you say it is that competitiveness? Because sometimes you watch some of these A-League games, you've got like the Ospreys against Leinster, say, and they're on like a leisure centre somewhere, no fans about. Would you say the players learn a lot more from playing, going to like Aberavon or Ebbw Vale on a Friday night on TV?
Well, I think firstly I think the pressure is different. Obviously every player who goes on the field wants to play well and impress, but you certainly won't be managing the pressures, as we said earlier, whether you're fighting for trophies, fighting to win a match, or you're fighting for survival with that club. And again, I think it's good to experience different cultures, get out and play in the Premiership. Play against someone that's an 18-year-old hooker who's playing against a 30-year-old hooker, whether it's Ebbw Vale or Merthyr or whatever. You're going to learn a huge amount in that game. I'm not saying the two can't survive, but the format that the A's were put out the last time, there was, I believe there was guys playing in it from the championship teams and things like that, So, under that, I can't support that, I got no doubt things will change. But for me, invest in the Premiership. I heard a lot of stuff being banded about self-preservation. I don't even know what that means. What's that mean? We're trying to do a job in Aberavon, play some really good rugby, pay the supporters back for the support they give us, because I've seen the supporters there when we're on a 50-point hiding, and then we win in, they're still supporting. So, we're trying to play some good rugby. We're trying to push the game forward. So, invest in the Premiership. We could always do to make the product better. We could certainly push what we've got now with on IT, for example. Let's do some really quality work with the players. We could have an analysis room where we could do extra work there. GPS is something I've never worked with. I've never experienced working with GPS systems. We did have some stuff through the WRU in training just to try it, going back, I think it was about 2 years ago. It was really interesting. So that, who's to know which way the Premiership would develop. I know in New Zealand, going back several years ago, the teams below the pro teams out there used to train in the mornings and split their sessions up. So, for that you need funding. So I personally think the Premiership is a perfect environment for players to develop. And that's, we're talking about players. We can also bring up officials as well. We've just seen the emergence of Adam Jones, tremendous ref. Craig Evans, I believe now is on the Six Nations official panel. So I think he's going to be involved this year. Both those guys, I remember them coming on the scene in the Premiership, and cutting their teeth in the Premiership. So I suppose when you ref in a game and there's a lot of pressure on that game and a lot depends on that game, perhaps they would learn a lot more reffing those games than reffing A games where that pressure doesn't exist. So, it's nice. The Premiership is good development tool, not just for players but officials as well. And those two refs I mentioned earlier, it's so nice to see them come through the Premiership and go in the way they are. Tremendous refs.
And as a coach now with Aberavon, what's your favourite place to visit in the Prem?
I always like going to Cardiff because I stay up there for the night after. So it's always nice to go up there. I quite enjoy Cardiff. I like going. Llanelli, I like going because I've got a lot of friends down there, and it's always a nice open pitch. But I like playing on grass, so I would have to say probably Llanelli, and our pitch is tremendous. We're very, very fortunate. Steve Jones and Rowan Jenkins are doing a fantastic job on the pitch there. So I think we've got a pitch that will rival anyone. But in answer to your question, my very favourite place would probably be Llanelli.
And if you could pick one player from another team in the Premiership to join your club, who would that be?
I got to be careful now, because if I say I could upset other players. Being honest, I think what we've tried to do, anyone who comes to Aberavon now has got to be, a very, very top end quality player, because if you look at our squad, we've got 31 contracted players at the moment, and 4 players obviously placed with us from the Ospreys. Honestly, we don't feel a need to go out and strengthen the squad to what we've already got. And I'm trying to be honest there. There's players in other teams. Obviously, I like Hayden Pugh. He runs the line-out down in Carmarthen really well. But if you look at our second row, basically, it's tremendous. We've got 4 second rows that are top quality Premiership players. So yeah, I like Hayden down in Carmarthen. Cardiff, I think Fish at fullback does a good job. But again, I got Chris Banfield and JP at 15. So both fantastic players.
Any boys from your playing day that you'd love to stick in your current team?
Apart
from yourself,
I soft spot. I would, yeah, but they'd probably be in jail after 2 or 3 games. Mervyn Meredith, got a soft spot for Merv. He played with me in Aberavon, and I sort of took an instant like to Merv when he came out of youth rugby. And Merv actually went to Ireland with Mike Ruddock, and Mike took him out there. And I think he played for Irish universities, or he played for one of the Irish age grade sides out there. He could have been a great player. Rob Price, probably loose head prop. Boney Mine boy. Very, very powerful scrummaging prop, but the game has changed now. But I mentioned Mike then. Mike. In fairness, we got a good relationship with the Ospreys, and Gareth Walters, does a fantastic job as a sort of a go-between, for want of a better word. I got a lot of respect for Gareth, and I've had a coffee with Mike recently, and. Mike, seen the work Mike's doing down there. He had a genuine interest for Aberavon and wanted to know what we do behind the scenes. And I think he's a real good guy. And I think looking forward to sort of making that relationship stronger under Mike Ruddock. Looking forward to that.
And you've probably got quite a few to choose from, but do you have one standout memory from coaching with Aberavon?
One that jumps to mind instantly. I remember the last game of, I think it was the 2014-15 season, where we needed a point to stay in the Premiership. Swansea were playing Neath in St Helens. Swansea had to win with a bonus point, and we had to earn no points from that game. And I remember we went to watch, myself and Andrew and Steve Womby went to watch Llanelli Swansea the week before, and Llanelli were well up by 30 odd points at half time. Made a load of changes in the second half. Swansea came back and won with a bonus. And I can remember coming home, and I think my wife Jo pulled up in the car, all the lights were off in the house, and I was sitting in the dark, and she put the kids back in the car and went over my mother's house. And that week, I think, I'm really proud again of the way the players responded. You know, it was the last game of the season. We'd had a brutal season. You know, we'd had some massive highs where we beat Pontypridd. You know, we'd had some really good performances, but it all came down to the last game. And I can remember we talk about, you know, young players and learning. You know, that for coaches as well was a fantastic learning experience. And you know, we went on the field knowing, you know, we could be in the championship the following year, and we scored 3 tries in the first half, and then Ian Moore scored the 4th try probably about 10 minutes into the second half. And Carmarthen were playing for a playoff slot, so they really wanted to put us to the sword. It was, you know, it was a brutal game, and we won. Sorry, we scored 4 points. We scored 4 tries, which meant we had the bonus point. And I'll never forget the scenes. You know, there was people crying in the stand. The game came to a halt. And talking to a couple of Carmarthen, Chris Bamfield was actually playing for Carmarthen that day, you know, and talking to him after it was going on, you know. So that probably will always stay in the memory. And you know, we learned a massive amount from that. I think everybody learned a lot from that, and you know, we've used that experience to make us better as a team and as an environment. You know, looking back at that, it was a very, very worthwhile experience to have.
And a bit of fun to finish. We got a teammate and player quiz for you.
Yeah.
So who's the worst dressed teammate?
Lee Pennell. He thinks he's the best dressed teammate, but he dresses like a boy band member, and he's told to dress like a boy band member. What I will say is his defence. He does look good, right? You know, he's got himself a 6-pack, and he trains like an animal. But yeah, I'd have to go Lee Pennell.
And who's the best drinker in the squad?
Richard Morris is by far the best drinker. I remember Richard had a ritual when we were playing. He had to have 24 bottles of Budweiser on a Friday night before the game. So he would always do that. And now he can swallow 8 pints of Stella. You know, well, I'm on my first pint. Playing wise, I know I've seen Sam Williams in a mess a couple of times, so I wouldn't have thought he's up there. Rodri Hughes turned up to the last presentation we had in the club, and you know, he had a couple of awards, but he couldn't speak. Steph Andrews, I think, thinks, you know, he's a bit of a top dog on the drinking. I would probably go for. I'd hate to see. If I had to put money on it, I'd hate to see him drink, but I'd probably say Andrew Waite. I think he can sling a few back.
And who's the changing room DJ you got there at the minute?
Joe Gage. Joe Gage runs the tunes in the changing room, you know, and I think I've only had the honour of doing that once, and I went out on the pitch, and when I came back in, they turned it off. So I don't think it was easy top, and Madness went down well. But yeah, Joe Gage runs the tunes.
And the biggest liability you've seen on night out?
Biggest liability, I would have to say, probably going back in time, would be Merv Meredith. He's just done some really stupid things. Chris Wyatt for Llanelli. I got some great stories. You know, most of them I can't repeat, but there was one I remember. It was fantastic. We played out in France, so we stayed in. I can't remember the name. The name of the city is gone, but it's the first stop on a Eurostar. So we stayed in a hotel, and as usual, we'd gone out and got drunk in the night. And I couldn't get Chris out of bed in the morning, and I was rooming with him, and I was down on the bottom, and it was like 8 stories up. Back, the team manager was having to go at me for not getting him out. I said, I can't get him out of bed. I remember Stuart Gallagher, the chairman of the Llanelli at the time, was stood next to us, and Chris leans out of the window 8 stories out, and he's sort of sticking the V's up to us down on the bottom, and back is shouting to him he's going to get fined. And literally 2 seconds later, a litre bottle of water, plastic bottle, exploded on the floor next to us. And I remember Stuart Gallagher turning to Anthony Buchanan and saying, "I can't believe that, Buck. Did you see that?" And Buck said, "What?" And I laughed so much at that Buck could just ignore it. But yeah, it was. I just enjoy going out with Chris. But liability now. I'm gonna have to say probably one of the backs. JP, I'd go for. He's a bit loose when he's had a few beers. I seen him up in Bristol. He's quite a loose goose.
And if you were stuck on a desert island, who's the teammate you'd most want to be with and the one you least want to be stuck with?
See, the thinker in me now is taking over, and I'm trying to think how I would survive on a desert island. So I'm going to go for a bit of fun, right? So the player I'd have with me was Joe Tomlin-Reeves, because I think Joe would just be entertainment from start to finish. He'd be quality, and he can surf. So maybe, he'd be good company there, especially if there was surf. The player I would least want to be with, I'd probably go. I'm not going to go with a player. I'm going to go with our team manager, Steve Jones, because he would mourn the whole time. No matter how good it was, Steve would find something to mourn about. I love Steve to bits. He's Mr. Aberavon, and if you cut him open, he'd be red and black. But yeah, he would mourn. He would mourn all the time. So I wouldn't want to be on there with Steve.
Right, that's all for another episode then. Thanks for joining us, Jason.
No problem. It's a real pleasure.
For those of you that are new, go and check out our socials at Welsh Prem Pod. Thank you and goodbye.